Sheridan,
Yes.
when you describe your husband, how would you describe him to me?
Do you want the actual description?
Yeah,
like how I describe it.
You know what I mean?
Okay,
Like how if you met a stranger and they were like, describe your husband to me, and you were like, oh yeah, my husband is like, sell it.
Okay, I would describe like height, I guess general features, hair color, eye color, like
Go
that.
into general features a little bit more.
Like okay, so again, eye color, hair color, height. That's
you'd be like,
that's it. That's it.
He's
I guess
like a redhead with green eyes, and he's 6 foot, right?
Exactly.
Okay,
that's it. Yes.
Here's my problem. All romance books, okay? This spans from contemporary to historical to fantasy, and it's that the way they describe these male leads, I have never once left a description and thought, yes, I know how this man looks.
That's what he looks like, yes.
And one of these books did this so bad to me, okay? And on top of that, the description that they provided was honestly, in my opinion, mean. Like, he sounded like a caricature by the end of it, okay? I copied this description because I was like, who are you selling this man to? Because it's not me.
Okay,
are you ready?
Yeah.
Harsh hewn features, broad forehead, and wide, thin-lipped mouth. Okay?
No.
He had a thick raven black hair, the same bold, broad nose.
Oh my God, she's doing him dirty.
And the bold, broad nose, and the same stubbornly jutting chin. The combination was striking rather than handsome.
You hate him? Man.
This is the male lead. This is the main male character's description. I'm not even kidding you. I did not make this up. I had to copy it because I was like, broad forehead for
So what is that? Is that width?
Did you just call him a 6 head? Like, what are you saying? And then they later, not in this description, but they later go on to describe him as a man of medium height. Like, they did this man no favors, okay? Not striking rather than handsome.
Striking rather than handsome. And they called out his nose, so a very prominent nose. Either a very tall or a very wide.
A broad nose. He has a broad nose. What? Tell me you don't picture like a creepy character, like where you take a man to like do a character with you and he just looks funky and you laugh at him.
Can you imagine that during time? Like the character?
No, like what?
Yeah. That is hilarious. You know who it made me think of, honestly?
Who?
Lord Farquaad from Shrek. A little shorter. You know, Lord Farquaad's probably less than medium height. But
I've never been so like I stepped back and I thought, am I supposed to now think like, oh wow,
that's
what a nice man.
Lead. Yeah.
Like, are we after his like at this point in time, like now you're just an earl, my friend. Like you're just
That's what
you're not in it
table.
for. Yeah. But you know what, Sheridan? What he lacks in height, he makes up for in forehead.
Oh my goodness.
Okay. Are you ready to kick this off? Because I think we should get into it. I'm not even going to say who the male lead is because we're going to keep getting half of this spoiler free. I'm not going to say which male lead it is. Yes.
Question with what he makes up in forehead, which is an amazing line. Does he have a receding hairline?
They didn't. Honestly, it sounds like he just has nice hair. So at the very least, amongst his giant forehead, nose, and jutting chin, he's got nice hair.
The chin. Okay. That's
jutting.
hilarious.
What does that mean?
She hates this man. Like
she has to.
This man.
I didn't hate him, but I mean, I was just like, I'm gonna go on my own journey of what I picture. Thin lips. Hang on. Wide, thin-lipped mouth.
So
I'm thinking of one of those smile characters. You know that horror movie?
Yeah. Oh my God, yeah. I just paintbrush over them to what I think I want them to look like. So
Which I think is, I respect that a lot. I look up fan art if I can, but a lot of times those give you spoilers. So I try now not to, because I've run amok into a spoiler or two in my time.
Yeah. That's
so I try to be more patient. But I mean, I get that authors are trying to like paint like a detailed picture, because like that's what they're up to, right? They're painting these whole detailed descriptions. I would have settled for just like a nice brown hair, brown eyes. You could have left the medium height in there, I guess. I guess we could have continued on his side.
But no, we have wide, thin lips,
wide,
big forehead,
thin lips,
and a jutting chin.
I'm offended for him.
I'm offended for him.
I could on this description all day, but I feel like people should know what we're talking about, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So if you're here, I'm Jordan.
And I'm Sheridan.
And together we're Sippin on Spice podcast.
And once a week, Jordan and I get together and we talk about all things books. And sometimes our thoughts do get a little unhinged, as you heard. So you may want to grab a beverage for this.
Yes, and we are going to talk today about the Hathaways and the Wallflower series by Lisa Kleypas. This is a historical romance genre. The beginning half of this, we're going to keep spoiler free. So if you've never read them before, you can hang in here, hear our rankings, and see if it's something you're interested in. And then in the second half, we will give you a warning and say spoilers ahead. And we're going to get into some of the finer details of some of these series.
Yay! Okay, I am so excited. I love these series and Lisa Kleypas, so I cannot wait to discuss. I have actually been waiting and really want to know your overall series rankings, because you've given me a little bit of hints, but you haven't given me your full rankings yet. So do we want to start with Wallflower rankings or the Hathaway rankings?
I think what we could even start with is, which series do you like better? So we're comparing the Hathaways, which is 5 series. It follows 5 different siblings, all standalone. And then the Wallflowers follows 4 friends, again, all standalone, but kind of interconnected, where you meet all the characters and they kind of pick up from one another. But again, you can read them as standalones or out of order. That's what I did.
Same. I read them out of order too. I read them. Okay. So out of the 2, which is your favorite?
Mine's the Hathaways, hands down.
Ooh, yeah.
I started with the Wallflowers. I really liked it. Don't get me wrong. I love that series. But for me, I just got really into the Hathaways. I loved the style of the family. They're kind of a little less prim and proper than what you'd expect in this, and what you get from like the Wallflowers. Even then, the Wallflowers are kind of quirky, but I just really liked the family. I was very invested in the whole family. How about you?
Same. No, completely agree. I love the Wallflowers. I also started with the Wallflower series in my Lisa Kleypas journey, but no, Hathaways for sure for me. Like you said, I absolutely loved the family. I didn't want the series to end. I wanted there to be more books that we could read about the family, because it's just like, and I think that Lisa Kleypas does a really good job of bringing in characters from her other series, specifically with historical romance series.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's important to note that going Wallflowers to Hathaways, if you want to go chronologically, because her series do go in like a time order, which is kind of cool. It would be Wallflowers first from a familial standpoint.
And you meet some of the characters in the Wallflowers show up in the Hathaways. They're not gone forever. They show up. Okay. So even though we said we love the Hathaways more, tell me your Wallflower book rankings, spoiler free, and the tropes, and then I'll do mine.
Number 1 is hands down It Happened When Autumn, and this is Lillian and Marcus's book.
Marcus,
was kind of I would call this like an enemies to lovers kind of. Not a true enemies in the way, I mean, it's a historical, right? So they're just like, they had like a dislike for each other. But what I liked about it is it gives you a lot of that banter and opposition where you're like instantly drawn into the story. And I really liked the pathway the story took. For me, it's important for male leads not to like waffle. And I felt like I felt like the trajectory of the love made sense to me, and I really enjoyed that.
Let's discuss Marcus. Let's discuss since he's your favorite male lead in the Wallflowers.
Okay, so this is not a spoiler. The description that we mentioned at the top is actually Marcus's description.
So weird.
I mean, this is page 3 stuff, so I promise no spoilers. Maybe it'll be less alarming to you now that you know what to expect going into it with his large forehead. I had to literally imagine someone else. I was like, you gave me nothing to work with. I'm going to picture my own man because I love him. Like, you cannot
Yeah.
do this to me. No.
Right? No, I'm just cracking up because I was like, hold on. We've already mentioned Marcus.
Because he's medium height.
Stop. But he makes up for it in forehead, like you said. Like, it makes up for it in forehead. He has a lot of personality and forehead.
What's crazy is they go on to, like, they say he's striking rather than handsome, but, like, everybody finds him, like, wants him, and it's like, based on what?
What does that mean, striking?
I don't know. Because when I hear the word strike, like, if somebody said, you're striking, not beautiful, I would be like, so you went, when you saw me?
That's
you know what I mean? Like, striking literally is like,
That's true. That's true. Like, you were hit with that because, you know, striking,
right.
you know, like, you were like
was
taken aback.
Right, like, was the character so hideous that you were like, oh my. You know what? That works.
You know who might be a good description of this, but, like, I find him extremely handsome, but would I say that he has really strong features? And
are you going to go to Adam Driver already?
Yes!
Oh my God.
Yes, because I find him
can't picture Marcus
handsome.
as Adam Driver.
Well, Adam Driver's very tall. He's not a medium height. But does he have striking features? Yes. He makes you turn your head, which is maybe all that striking means.
You know what, Sheridan? I'll agree with you that he is a striking person, but I don't think that we end on the same note with it.
Adam Driver's hot. Okay, one day I'll get you to believe that.
I don't think you could. I honestly, it's to the point now where I talk about it with my husband anytime we see something about Adam Driver, and he'll be like, "Well, I mean, he's got these ads. Women obviously like him." And I'm like, "Whose side are you on?" Okay, number 2 is Devil in Winter, and this is Evie and Sebastian's story. I know that a lot of people rank this one. I actually anticipated to rank it one because I typically lean into a reformed playboy. In this terminology, he's a reformed rake. But he has kind of a villain origin story that you get if you read them in order. I will say I read his book first, and I really, really liked him. And then I went back and read some of the other books, and I feel like reading his villain origin story second made it demerited him for me. So I could appreciate if you read this in order and felt different. But for me, I think it gave me the ick on the later books where, like, I didn't go into his recovery story and remember, like, to forgive him. So it was like, you betrayed my trust in you, Sebastian. But I still loved him. I still loved the story. I still eat up. Again, number 2. Okay. Where do you rate Devil in Winter? Because I feel like you actually like it a lot more than I do.
Yeah. So I think I do as well, but I also have it at number 2. It's number 2 for me.
Okay.
So yes, I love Sebastian and Evie's story. What I super love about it is what you've said as well, that it really is, he is all about her. It's only ever been her. He is a reformed rake, as you said. His journey of caring for her is actually very, like, tender-hearted and sweet. He does have a villain arc that I would say is a true villain arc in other books in the series. But I would say his journey to falling in love with her is extremely tender and sweet. So I also ranked this as number 2 in the series.
I forgot to ask you, what did you rank Marcus?
Oh, I'm going to make you mad. I couldn't decide which one. Okay, this was a hard decision for me, but I'm going to put Marcus and Lillian at 3.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to put 4, and I was like, we'll throw hands right now.
Don't sick Marcus on me. Don't
Listen, I will take his forehead. His jutting chin will jut at you, my friend.
That is so funny. No, so he's number 3 for me. I love the story. I love Marcus. He is a character that you see in future series. And he's a great stand-up guy, description aside, but there is just other books that
even he might not stand up very high.
Well, yes, exactly. But he makes up for it with how great of a guy he is. And he did truly love Lillian. You're right. He did not waffle.
Like, I don't mind if at the beginning they like deny feelings and things like that. You know what I mean? But what I hate in a book is if the male lead's like, I like you. Should I take it back? Should
Yes.
I dial it forward? Like, I do not like, no. Make a decision and see it out, my friend. Whatever that decision may be.
Yes.
You can, you know what I mean? You could start on that enemy path and then change your mind down the line, but you're not going to waffle once you say you want it. Like,
Yes.
no.
Yes. Once you've committed and you're like in a relationship or you're exploring it, at that point you cannot back out. At that point you cannot back out.
Yeah, exactly.
Agreed.
Okay, number 3, I have Scandal in Spring. I have Daisy.
Ooh.
Is that your number 1?
It is my number 1.
Okay, how would you describe it? I'll let you describe it then.
Okay, so I would also say it's enemies to lovers kind of, but it's really dislike to lovers because they're not really true enemies. But I would also say opposites attract. But what really like sells this book for me and makes it a number 1 for me is that the male main character has pined and has been in love with the female main character, Daisy, for like over 10 years. Like he met her when he was younger because he works for her family, and he goes to these family dinners and he's just sitting there pining for her. And this is just a trope. This is not a spoiler. But also I would say, would you say like grumpy sunshine, but done historically? Because he's not really grumpy. She's definitely sunshine.
More like I feel like his whole vibe is just like the more like I'm not good enough trope.
Oh,
I don't even know if that's considered a subtrope, but you know what I mean? I feel like it's a whole different thing because he's not grumpy. He's just like, he's his own personality type, which is fine. Like he's quirky. It's more just that he's like the whole I'm not good enough.
That's true. That's true. And I think it's with that he's like, I just love that combination. Like he's pining for her. It's definitely that whole, it's only ever been you before. Like that fits him to a T. It's only ever been Daisy for him. So that's number 1. And you ranked it as number 3?
I ranked it as number 3, and the main reason being he, in my opinion, waffled.
Oh, he doesn't waffle.
Not in his reaction, not in his love for her, but in what he was willing to do to have her. I really like when male characters reach the point and they're like, I might not be good enough for her, but I'm going to take her. Like that's the mindset I want, you know? And so I just feel like he didn't have that, and I struggled with that because then it's just like, because in my opinion, it's just like, if you're going to be a villain, be a villain. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pony up.
I can see that. But then
I really liked his personality. And I also think it's important that like, even in ranking these, like at 3, it does not mean it was not like a 4.5 star for me. It was still a very like high rated book for me. I still really enjoyed it.
Same with Marcus and Lillian's book for me. Like 3, it's still good. It's still great.
Number 4, I think we're going to be the same. So. Secrets of the Summer Night. This is book 1 in the series. It is like a, marriage I think she's in a predicament to get married. Yes, it's a marriage of convenience. I think this book falls under what I call the first of the series curse. And it's true for me in a lot of series, which is I will read the first book and usually I read it last. Like I feel like I do out of order frequently. And what I find is typically when you go back to the first book, it's just not as good as the other ones. Now, not to say it's bad, but it's almost like if I had read that book first, I don't know if I would have been as into this series and wanted to binge it as fast as reading it out of order, because you get into such good books. And I just feel like it's the curse of book 1. It's never usually the best.
Yes, I agree with you, which now makes me think like, how many series have we not given a fair chance because book 1 wasn't great? Like how many times like had we actually like, you know what I mean? Like if we read book 1 first and we didn't commit, but I totally agree with you. It's not a bad book, but out of the love stories, it affected me, like got those heartstrings the least.
Yeah. I also want to say that from a trigger warning or topic warning, it was a darker book. Some of the things that happened in it were a lot darker and sadder. And so I think that also kind of plays into it.
Yeah, I could see that. Because I think what's great about historical overall is it is escapism. And while there is stress, it's overall low stakes. It's different than fantasy and romance where most of the time it's, you know, you're going to get a happily ever after. It's lower stakes, let's say, than fantasy romance. And you are escaping. It is escapism.
Yes. But I will say something I love about this author is that instead of like third act breakups, because they don't really make sense in historicals, right? You can't really have a third act breakup. You're either getting married or you're not.
Yeah.
And you're kind of, you got to see that path out. That's kind of the style of it. What I like
those
about
are the stakes.
Right. And what I like about this author is rather than it just being like a fluffy book where you're like, wow, I liked the first, 30%. And then after that, I got a little bored. And then, you got a good ending. What I like about these is she introduces tension in other ways and creates such a good dynamic story where while the stakes might not be a third act breakup, there are other plot points or other things that happen in every single book where I can sufficiently say like I'm on the edge of my seat wanting to know. Like there's one book that we'll get into that I told you was like the most stressful thing I've ever read. I was like, I just want 5 minutes of peace. It was like stress, one good page, stress. I was like, I need like a Xanax. Like I'm not okay.
I think I know what book it is and I'm so excited to talk about. I think I know the one that you're talking about and I cannot wait to get there. So with that being said, should we move into the Hathaway series? Because we've done our rankings for the Wallflowers.
Do you want to go in your order this time?
Yes. Okay, let's do it. Okay, so I waffled. Speaking of waffling, I waffled making these
You're
rankings.
A waffle?
I am a waffler.
Okay. I'm really interested because I thought your number one was going to be a shoo-in.
Oh, my number one's a shoo-in. But I waffled on 3 and 4. I kept going back and forth. So I don't know if that's a true waffle. But yeah, number one, hands down, you know what's coming. You know it's Seduce Me at Sunrise, Maripin / Kev and Wynn's story. Like that, it's also pining again. It's definitely only ever been her for him. He's never been in love with anyone else ever. Doesn't even like people other than her. And he is the definition of a pining, tortured hero that feels like this anguish in his love for her. And I eat it up. I love it. I'm obsessed.
So this is going to come as no surprise to you. Probably hurt your feelings.
Don't break my heart.
He's number 5.
Oh my God, it's your least favorite book?
Least favorite. I'm sorry. I know that you love him. For me, here's the thing. Without spoiling anything, I just can't give in to certain types of tortured, especially when it goes on for a certain amount of time. And there are certain things that happen in this book that I could not forgive. For me, you were able to rationalize them, and we can talk about this in the spoiler section.
Yes.
For me, they were firm no, sirs. You, no way.
Oh, that does break my heart. My little Maripin.
Sorry.
You're doing him dirty. But we will discuss this in the spoiler section.
Yeah.
We will.
We'll get into it because I honestly have a lot to say on him.
Okay.
But yeah, that was a firm 5 for me. Like I didn't even need to, I could have started from the bottom up.
Oh my God, you just didn't even, that's actually, I think this is one of the few times where you and I are so, like, to go 1-5.
Opposite.
Yes, opposite. Thank you. That's the word I was thinking of. That is actually very rare. It's a very polarizing book. Apparently.
I think it's interesting because we've talked about this before of like what our tried and true tropes are and like things that hook us. And like a good example was I think Wild Eyes, right? Something I rated a 5-star that like you did not feel the same nearly at all about. Yeah. And I think it's just there are certain tropes that you and I get into where like our hard no's are just too like we can't pass them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true. This is true. So he did something you did not forgive. So who did you rank as number 1?
So my number 1 was hands down. I actually, again, I read it last because it's the first book in the series and I did not think, I was scared. Okay. I thought the Curse of Book 1, I'm not going to let it ruin the series for me. So I read it last and let me tell you, Mine Till Midnight can.
Ooh.
Holy cow. This is, okay. This is like the adult woman's dream. Now, I'm not saying that if you're younger or whatever that he won't be your dream. I'm just saying if you have ever been like, yes, acts of service are important to me. Having somebody who just like takes the weight off your shoulders is important to me. Like this, for the only trope I can think of is this is the female lead is the one who always steps up and fixes things. And when the male lead comes in, he's the fixer and he takes the weight off the shoulders. And I'm sorry, there was nothing than that whole storyline to me and the way this man showed up and the way of the storyline. There's no waffling, like everything about it. It was just a 5-star hands down, like Yes, that is
Ooh.
adult Jordan's dream.
I love this. Okay, I love this for you on so many levels. I am shocked that someone else was dethroned that we can get into. I am
Yes.
shocked, but I
am
so
too.
happy. Yeah, because you were obsessed with someone else. Like
Obsessed.
Like in the series,
and again,
obsessed.
that goes to say how much I love this series. Like the fact that I had two like that, I literally sat there and was like, shoot, who would I put as one?
Yeah.
Because I love them both so much. But it was just like, I guess like outside of like the tropes you like, right, and things you like, it was just like, in my opinion, the most realistic,
Yes.
awesome male lead. You know what I mean? Like somebody,
Yes.
like if this person showed up in real life, you'd be like, that's a Marion type.
I 100% agree with you with that statement. Reading, escapism, American all day. They're pining all day. In real life, that would be exhausting AF, and you got to go with the Cams. Cam is the most real. Like if they showed up in real life, you'd be like, absolutely, thank you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
If your friend dated him, you'd be like, marry him right now. Like I don't know what you have to do to lock that down, but you lock that down.
Good choice. Yes. No, I 100% agree. I 100% agree. I don't think this is a spoiler to say. When you finish the Wallflower series, you're like, Cam is meh, because you do meet him briefly in Devil in Winter, and you were kind of like, yeah, he's meh.
Oh yeah, I didn't even want to read his book. I was like,
Exactly. Shocked. I am shocked by this, but I'm so happy for your journey.
Was I wrong?
Boy, yeah.
I was so wrong.
You know what else you're wrong about when we talk about Kev later? But anyways.
No, I'm not going to be wrong. We're going to have some words.
We are. But yes, I agree with you. I reread it to talk about it because it's been so long since I've read this one. And upon rereading it, I loved it way more than the first time. So that's what I was waffling on its placement because I liked it so much better than the first time.
So would you put as number 2? Because that was my number 1.
Okay, so it's number 2. I did Tempt Me at Twilight. It is Poppy and Harry's story. I just absolutely... I don't know what trope you'd say with this either. It's almost like a marriage of convenience, but I would say Harry's a bad guy. He's not a nice guy.
Yeah, it's kind of like he's like a morally gray male lead. But I would say he's textbook, I shouldn't have her, but she's mine. And I will do whatever it takes and I don't care. Like she will be mine. And I would say like, I would almost call that the trope because that really is like, that's, you know, from beginning, he spots her and he's like, mine.
That's true.
I will do whatever it takes. And he does.
He does. He does. Morally great. And he does. And he also does not waffle one bit.
Mm-mm.
Like it is also.
No, he's a great male lead.
Absolutely. It is only her for him. Like that's it.
It's I love Poppy as a character. The female lead. She is a great, like she's probably, I think I read this book first in the series, which it is book 3, I think. But I will say that was perfect for me. I really liked Poppy and I thought she was a really great introduction to the Hathaway family as like the kickoff, I guess, which again, I would say this series might be more rewarding to read in order just because of the timeline of some events. And again, with book 1 being so good, I don't think you have to worry about that fear here. But if you don't really care and you're willing to go back and forth, this is a perfectly great place to start. I fell in love with Poppy right away and it helped me fall in love with the Hathaways.
Oh, good. Okay, so that's what I was just going to ask. Would you have loved Cam and Amelia's story as much had you not gotten to meet Cam kind of in a different way already? Like if you didn't start with Poppy and Harry?
That's a hard question. I think so because again, I love their book as its own, but I think you like, again, because these characters are so ingrained in all of each other's stories that you continue to see Cam and you continue to love Cam more. So I think I was already invested in Cam and that made it a little bit better. But I think from a standalone of his book, I think you'd still be very satisfied with him. It's just, he keeps paying off.
That makes sense. Okay. Who did you put as number 2?
So for number 2, I put Married by Morning, and that's Leo's story, Leo and Catherine. I am sorry.
Okay.
This was the reformed rake. He has somewhat of a villain arc, but I would say a more understanding villain arc than what I would say we experienced in the Wallflower series. Again, another reason I think that you should read these books, probably I would recommend reading the Hathaways in order, is just because of the way the family kind of grows together is important. But wow, I loved him. I loved his personality. He's hilarious. I loved their dynamic together because she's kind of the straight-laced and he's kind of the reformed rake, like silver-tongued character.
Yeah.
I loved him. Like I loved him in all the other books, but I really loved him in his book. It was so good. He was the hardest one to put second.
Oh, okay. Wow. I'm shocked. That's why I was shocked when you picked Cam and Amelia as first, because you were obsessed with
sorry, I
Leo.
couldn't.
Like, you were so obsessed with Leo. So I was like, what? I'm shocked. Also, we're going to debate later whether Leo is more forgiving than St. Vincent. Like, for sure.
Yes.
When it comes to reforming rakes. Yes.
Yes.
So for number 3, at first I was totally going to do Married by Morning, Leo and Catherine's book. But then I reread Cam and Amelia's book, and they bumped up for me because I totally was going to put Leo 3.
Yes. It's like my heart is
yes.
broken that either of them could be at 4.
I know. It was so hard. It was so, like, I was like, this whole series is great. But upon reread, I do think you're right. Just being a little bit older reading this time around, like, Cam spoke to the responsibility that I want to see. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it was so great. So Leo was also dethroned for me from 3, and Cam and Amelia are in 3rd place for me.
It's like I want to be understanding, but I'm mad both ways.
You're like, this is a lose-lose. At least I bumped up Cam for you.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I really think that's what it is. I think if I had read this when I was younger, I would have liked him, but not loved him. But I think, like, being a mom, a full-time employee, a wife, you know what I mean? Like, just having a lot of responsibility, not even saying you need to have those things to have a lot of responsibility, right? Responsibility looks different to everybody.
Yes.
I think just somebody who has a lot of responsibility, seeing a character like that, you're like,
you're like, oh
my, you're saying a lot of things I really like.
You're like, this is my love language. Thank you.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay, who'd you put 3rd?
3rd, I put Harry. I put Harry Tempt Me at Midnight. Again, it was so hard for me to rank these. Again, with the exception of number 5, I would say these were all like 4.5, 5-star reads for me. So you're really just ranking like personalities at that point.
I am also shocked that Harry's a little bit lower because he doesn't waffle. But then upon hearing your love of Cam and Leo, I'm glad at least Harry's after that.
Yeah, and it's nothing like I would still rate that a 5-star book. It's just my love of Cam and Leo are just insurmountable.
You're like, just no one can beat it. And
no.
I love that I won't spoil it, but we see Harry again in Leo's book.
Yes. And again, what's nice about these is the way that they're all intergrained is like you just get awesome bits of each of them as they get kind of married off to each other. And seeing them more because the family's so interconnected that like there are scenes that I just absolutely love that just build off that dynamic. Like to your point, like I just want more. I want so much more.
Same. So as 4, I already said Leo, and that is Married by Morning. That's 4th place for me. So who is in 4th place for you?
Mine was Love in the Afternoon, and that's Beatrix and Christopher. I really liked this one. It was a very different story. It's kind of like almost like a Dear John story, I guess is what you'd say. Like, where essentially the female lead is writing on behalf of her friend to a soldier, and he comes home in love with the wrong girl.
Ooh.
And it's just honestly, like, I think, and we'll talk about this more in the spoiler section, I'd really like to compare Christopher to Kev. Because I think there's a lot that we could kind of break down there. But I just loved the uniqueness of the story. I really felt for both characters. I really fell in love with the story. I loved, there was a lot of logic in it in a lot of ways. And for me, it was still a really beautiful story. And again, like a 4.5-star read for me. So again, being in place 4 is not negative.
Interesting. I'm fascinated to talk about Christopher and Kev, and that's very interesting. Okay, and I already know what my answer is going to be to your argument because I can already hear your argument. So I already know about Kev and Christopher.
I can't wait to fight with you about it.
Okay, I'm sorry. Number 5 for me is Beatrix and Christopher. It is a beautiful story. It's just there's a few things stacked against it, which we've kind of already talked about. a big one for me is earlier in the series, you meet Beatrix and she's pretty young. She's the youngest sibling, and time passes. People do age. That is to be expected. But when I meet a character who's young, they never change for me. So
Yeah,
I
I could see
cannot,
that.
yes. So I could not see her being a romantic lead. I just kept seeing her as too young.
She was a child to you.
Basically, yeah. And series do this. I get it. But to me, that's hard. And then also, he was engaged to someone else. Even though their journey expands from there, I don't forgive. He was engaged to someone else.
Mm.
So that's why it's fine for me. That. Yeah, I mean, I know you're going to have an argument, but the big thing for me, the big thing is meeting Beatrix so young.
Yeah, I totally get that. Okay, one other thing I want to talk about before we move on to spoilers. And again, this being kind of my first group of series in the historical romance, right? You talked me into reading historical.
Yes.
Last time we spoke. So I went down a bender. I did not expect to fall as in love as I did, but something that stood out to me coming from contemporary and fantasy and moving into historical is the way that they describe genitalia in historical versus like others. I like it's like how's the best way to put this? It's like more poetic the way they talk about genitalia. Like, okay,
I can see that.
A couple keywords that stand out to me, right? They talk about balls and they call them heavyweights.
Can you just imagine them like weighted on a stack of papers? Like
I actually pictured like those things that donk together on old school desks. You know what I'm talking about?
Like the pendulum that swings back and forth. Are they like,
like I just imagine her cupping those.
Okay, that is really funny.
And then in multiple of these books, they were like one of them asked how they would describe a penne pasta, like what word to use for it. And they didn't have a word. Like what, like did they not, like they didn't say it's a peen. They like made up like a poetic analogy. And then there was one of them where for the female portions was described as like a flower, like a specific flower.
Yes.
And I was just like, what? It's like they don't know. I don't know like timeline wise. So again, pleading ignorance to history here. But I don't know if they just didn't have like anatomy shaken out at the time.
No, I
think
they
just used the most random things.
They do. I do. Well, I think that that's like such a good point because in the books they describe like they're not told the act at all. Like in the Wallflowers, their friends are like, "Oh, you're gonna get married. You're gonna do it," but they leave. Okay, are you even friends if you don't tell your friend who, again, in this setting has no idea what's gonna happen, doesn't give any details, and they're just like, "Your husband will take care of you." What?
Yeah.
Why don't you tell your friend anything?
In one of the books they say, I think it's a later series or a different historical, but they say like the man gets to choose what to tell her. Like the husband gets to choose what to tell her. Like that's what they expect. And I was like, don't like that.
I don't like that either.
One bit.
Don't like that either. Okay, yeah. So again, we get it. It's historical, different timeline, different world. But yes, they are not sharing. They're not doing any favors or sharing any secrets. So I wrote down my favorite weird words or just like shocking things. Cam actually in his moments says there's something that happens. We won't give it away, but he says I'd like to go back to plowing my wife. And while I love Cam, I was like,
I don't mind it.
No, because then
I'm fine with it.
I just think
I mean, you don't want Cam to plow you?
I'd be down, but can he use a different word? Can he use different verbiage?
Let me God and my wife. You want the poetry?
Yes, exactly. I don't want to be plowed. I don't want to be told he said it in front of her. Like,
speak for yourself.
Well, I don't. Okay, there's just like a plow. Isn't a plow taken by a cow? Like, isn't it led by a cow?
No, I think it's like a machine.
Well, I mean, maybe back in the day.
I don't know.
So in their timeline, they don't have the machine.
I think it's between. I think it's between the item and the foliage.
Exactly. Another one again per Cam. Cam calls it her furrowed silk.
Oh.
Furrowed silk.
Something about the word furrow because I always picture like a rodent. burring
Oh.
itself. You know what I mean? Like they furrow. So I
Oh.
always think of like a rodent. I don't ever think of like a nice, like I don't know what could nicely furrow.
Oh, that is
Apparently
a really
silk.
good point. Apparently silk. I thought of birds, like feathers. And I was just like, you shouldn't be having feathers. Hopefully there's no feathers. I mean,
I mean,
unless you
some people are into
choose.
that.
Yeah, unless you choose. I mean, yeah, no judgment. And then he exits the situation, and her lady bits are called to be pulsating lady bits.
Well,
Her pulsating furrowed silk, if you will.
listen, it's not wrong. Crazy.
It's not a plow. So,
But I will say, like, okay, tell me how. I think it's such a breath of fresh air to read these kinds of verbiages because I feel like, especially in contemporary and fantasy, like these modern books we're reading, right? Books that were written in the past 5-10 years, not even 10, but like 5 to 7, right? Like, how far back is ACOTAR even?
10 next year.
10? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say 5 to 10, right? Last 5 to 10 years, some of these more popular books that you really do get consistent wording all the time. Repetitive, right? Velvet, steel,
Yes.
wet heat. Oh my God, that hurts to say out loud.
Folds,
but you know what I'm saying? Fold.
yes.
Oh my God. I would much rather somebody drop a flower analogy on me every now and then than read, you know what I mean? It really branches you out where you're like, you know what? That's fine.
I don't hate it.
Journey accepts.
Okay, I could see that and I could agree. Furrowed silk, maybe just say silk. Just say silk. Flowers all day, but maybe don't say that the silk is furrowed.
Maybe furrowed's just another word for deep. That's where my brain is going. And the word deep is kind of,
Yeah.
Like if you said her deep silk, you'd be like,
I'd be like, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I can see your point.
Okay. Are you ready to move on to spoilers?
Yes, always.
Okay. So I'm going to take a pause here. If you are with us and you have not read these books and you don't want any spoilers, thanks for hanging out. I would put a pause on this, save this for later, come back when you've read it. And remember, you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube at Sippin on Spice. And we hope to see you next week. If not, hang out. We're going to spoil some shit.
Yes, I am ready. I have been waiting.
Okay. Let's get into it. Okay. So my first note is, so something you brought up to me, because I just read them, right? I just binged them in like, what, a week?
Days. I was very impressed with you.
I was impressed with me. I think that's the fastest I've ever done it. Honestly, that was very impressive for even me.
You did great work. You did great work.
I was doing like a book a day at a point where I was just
were.
I don't know how I did it, honestly, but I couldn't put it down.
That's
how good this was.
They're that good.
Then you and I started talking, and we discovered that there are pieces of some of these books that changed.
Yes.
From when you read them versus when I read them.
Yes, which I was shocked to learn this, but I was looking something up online about the books, and apparently the original print of Annabelle's book and Lillian's book, so Summer and Autumn, there were some iffy consent, to be honest, like some moments of iffy consent that were rewritten to take out those parts. In Lillian's book, what I read is when they first have schmexy time, she is drunk and inebriated, and then that's the first time the bang. And she really is compromised. Like, it's not a hidden compromise. It's not a kind of compromised. They go
the whole way.
They go the whole way. And I think that it was taken out because she gets really drunk in the library, and that's when it happens, and he's sober.
So in the version I read, that she does go to his bed, but they have like, let's say they hit a couple bases, but they don't go all the way. And she makes a note to say that. She talks to Daisy and she says like, no, but we did fool around quite a bit. And then they go on to have another scene that is very clearly the first time scene.
Okay.
So
interesting.
The home run does not occur
until later
in the drunk scene with Lily, in the version I read.
And isn't it so interesting? We read like two completely different versions. Like, that's so crazy. It's very interesting, especially because she was a virgin, right? In this timeline, she's a virgin. So I just feel like I see why maybe from some outside pressures it was rewritten. And these books, like The Wallflowers, I think were written in the early 2000s. So at this point, it is 20 years old. So I do think maybe some obviously, which is a really great thing, attitudes have changed around consent in media that we read and consume, which is a great thing.
Would you say in this particular instance, because they do have a whole storyline before it, did it change? Would you, having read my version, made you like it more?
Probably. Yeah, probably, because I didn't like again, Westcliff Marcus is a great guy. I love him in other books, but like this romantic story did nothing for my heartstrings. But I'm wondering if it was like there was parts I felt were icky. And maybe that was one, specifically a big part that I felt was icky. And again, we're talking about spoilers, is in the summer book, Annabelle and Hunt's book. So right when she meets him, well, he's known her from afar, but then in one of their original interactions that starts off the book, she goes to like a play, they call it like a panorama or something, and he sneaks in when it's dark and sits by her. He's flirting with her and he kisses her. And then she's like, who are you? Like, she knows of him, but it's not like they've had chats. And then later on, shortly thereafter, the story progresses. He asks her to be his mistress, to pay her debts. Again, we're talking about spoilers right now. So basically, he kisses her without her consent in the dark, then runs away. And then shortly thereafter, just basically propositions her like an indecent proposal.
Yeah, so in the version I read, that doesn't happen. In the version I read, at the beginning, he catches them playing rounders, which I assume is baseball, right?
Yes.
Baseball, essentially, in their undergarments. To get him not to tell anyone what he saw, she exchanges a kiss. But I will say later on, so they continue to have this, like, I would say enemies to lovers kind of situation, tryst, where he's really pursuing her. She's running out of options, right? Which I really struggled with. I really struggled with that.
Hers is a dark real.
Yes. And I would say later on, when he starts to give into the attraction, I think initially he never thought he would get married, was kind of the thing that they were trying to tell us. But he offers for her to be his mistress. And I really struggled with that. And he kind of immediately dials that back, right? And he immediately, moves into the wife situation. But I really struggled with the fact that that was ever on the table, especially knowing her situation and what was happening. I just really struggled with that. And I really had a hard time forgiving him.
Yeah, same. Like, again, and it's weird too, because you meet Hunt in later books and you're like, oh, he's a great guy. I'm liking him in the group with the other couples. But if you haven't read his book, it's kind of like, it's just icky. Like, it definitely gives icky feelings. Yeah. Like, it feels like he's taking advantage of a really rough situation for her and her mom. Yeah. And it doesn't feel good. You know what I mean?
And it feels like he's stacking the cards in a way, right?
Oh, yeah.
It would have been romantic if the initial offer had been marriage.
Exactly, because then he's Harry.
Not. Exactly. Exactly. And I think I just really struggled with that character.
I agree, because he's like basically offering to debase her, like,
and be like, well, I'll just pay for you to live this way that you clearly don't want to live.
Exactly, but no commitment though. No commitment.
Yeah,
no commitment. Yeah.
Are you ready?
I am. Yes. I guess so. Okay. I guess we're to that point.
We're going to talk about Kev, the love of your life, the bane of my existence.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. Where do you want to start your argument? Where do you want to start with this?
Here's the thing. The thing. You see Kev as a tortured, pining male lead.
Yes.
I see Kev as having all of these years around a loving family, included in the family, to change his ways, to be, you know what I mean? Like, it's not like he had never seen love before. He saw it. He saw her. She throws herself at him like time after time after time. That hurt for me to watch, but whatever. And he still shuts her down. Then she gets compromised and he lets somebody else who he knows to be a bad guy that he's still investigating to take her and say that, oh, this was me. I'm sorry, but after thing after thing after thing, in the very end, you can't change your mind. I just could not, especially, I'm sorry, the final line was him letting him say that Dr. Harrow was the one who ruined her. I could never move past that. Like, that was an absolute no for me.
Okay, I see your point, and I even texted you. He's going to bother you, so go easy on him for this. Because it is not great that he did that. I don't love that part. But what I tell myself and what I love about his tortured hero, what I love about his tortured hero is he does, but the biggest
like 15
issue,
years ago.
Okay, but he has the roughest upbringing of the majority of the male leads. Then the crux of the issue that is his journey and why he makes all of these decisions is he does not think he is good enough for her. He cannot stop loving her because he's obsessed with her, and it's only ever been her for him. But he does not believe he hates himself so much. He does not believe he is good enough for her. So he felt that if he said, I was the one that compromised her and offered his hand in marriage, is because she would be lowering herself and she would be ruining her life. He does this out of love. Now, did he make a poor choice? And did I love that Leo is the one that kind of like knocks sense into him? Absolutely. Absolutely. I was like, Leo, this is a moment where I love you. I thought that moment was very cute and sweet. The issue is Kev does not think that he is worthy of good things. He has extreme mental health issues and he hates himself. So his journey truly was to love himself, to be able to love Wynn back. He loves her, but to be able to accept that they could be together. And do you know who else that sounds like? I don't want to throw ACOTAR spoilers out here, but Nesta. I totally Nesta. With that. Nesta hates herself. She says she hates herself. Kev hates himself.
But again, you're talking two very different situations because this man has been in the family that's loved him, shown him. He's been with this chick for forever, right? Yes. Whereas Nesta, and again, we won't get into spoilers, but has a different journey. So I think it's hard for you to compare the two because I think that you've had enough nurture past that initial experience that why weren't you working on these things for all of these years?
That's a valid point. Why doesn't he work on it? But again, what is men's mental health in the 1800s? I mean, even to this point, mental health in the 1800s? Exactly. To this point, I think even modern day men struggle with the thought that they may need mental health assistance, you know?
I want to pose a different character that you rated way lower. Okay, now compare him to Christopher, right? The man who came home from hates himself, can't understand everything he's done, can't hold the weight of it, right? I will say the thing that I will give Kev is that I did not live his trauma, right? They talk about it in the past. Yes. So you don't really live through the storyline of the trauma, which I think of course drives a different punch, so to speak. So I will give you that concession. You live through Christopher's, but the difference is night and day. He decides he wants something and he's like, well, it's not going to work if I keep acting like this, but I love her and she deserves better. So I'm going to show up. That's what I'm talking about is he had all of those years. It's not like he got thrown into a new situation. He had so many years with these same people, the same environment, the same everything.
Yes. But he didn't believe he was worthy of them until later.
It just makes me care less.
Okay, because I can see your point.
He just knocked her down, embarrassed her, and then at the end decides, oh, never mind, I'll change for you. Like,
he does change for her. He does commit then. And you know,
he could have done it 100 pages ago.
True. I see your point. But he also, what I just love about Kev, which I struggle, as you know, we've talked about this. Whether he loved Prudence or didn't love Prudence, the way they came together, it doesn't pull my heartstrings. Like Christopher.
Oh, I was fine with that.
Yeah, I don't like it. Whether he was in love with her, not in love with her, he did not pine for Beatrix.
He was in love with Beatrix the whole time. That's the point.
But he didn't know.
Yeah, but I mean, he knew a name, and he did know that things seemed different. And then here's the other thing that was in his favor is he met Prudence right away, and after on meeting one, he was like, "This isn't right." And then you know what I mean? He immediately was like, something is off. That was like one of his biggest redeeming qualities to me because I thought I was going to suffer through him playing the Prudence game for this whole book. And I was like, I am not ready to watch him try and force this Prudence thing. And the fact that he didn't, and he kept just seeing, trying to see if he could find what was there and being like, something isn't right. This isn't right. And he immediately knew it wasn't her and that they played him. I was like, yes, thank you. Because that shows he actually loved her.
Okay, so that's a valid point, but again, no pining. There's no pining, and then also too, again, I
He
think
was at war, dreaming of her
but
nonstop.
he didn't know her before. He didn't know her. But anyways, that is beside the point. I think what I struggle with, I did not give Christopher a fair shot for this argument because I could not see them as adults. Again, Beatrix, if it had been a different sibling, and if it had been like kind of how they pull in Catherine Marks, if it had been different characters in this trope, probably I would feel very differently and absolutely love it. Because I'm thinking of another book by Elsie Silver where one of the brothers goes through something similar, at war in modern day. And I loved that book. And it is kind of a similar, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I loved that book. So if it wasn't Beatrix, I think I'd love it. So I don't know that I gave Christopher a fair shot.
I will also give you the concession that I feel like they kept Beatrix kind of young, even like some of her reactions, some of her, some of her. Well, even in that book, some of her things came across less innocent and more childish.
Oh, makes sense.
So I could see some of your point there, but I just thought if Kev had a similar path to Christopher from a timeline and a effort standpoint, I would have felt different.
It's the just effort. I'm sure
it went on too long.
Yeah. And it's hard. It is frustrating. I will concede you this. He's still my number one. That book still breaks my heart. I'm still obsessed with it. I love it when I'm having like kind of a bad day or a rough little spell in life. I'll just read that book and just like commiserate in the feelings of sadness of Kev. Yes. It's a good, if you want to wallow, it's a great, because he wallows. He wallows. He struggles with multiple things, but he again tortured. Yes, and what I love the most that I just again check so many boxes for me is he does so many things for her. He's not Cam active service level, but there's so many things he does over the years to show her that he loves her. The bluebird wallpaper or painting or whatever. Oh my god.
Oh yeah. And the cleaning of her window. Don't get me wrong. Yes. I'm not saying he was not romantic. I'm just saying I was sick of his.
I can see that. You're like, shape up or shout. Shape up or shout.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, I will concede your points. It's still my number. It's still my favorite. But again, Cam, like I said, Cam went up the ranks. Like he did for me. Oh my God, so,
Cam. Cam's climbing flagpoles over there. I thought no one could beat Leo. And I was like, holy who knew I needed a realistic male lead?
There you go. Okay, so speaking of Leo again, do we want to debate Leo versus St. Vincent?
Yes, so, I think the great debate of the villain arc. And it is, okay, so we have two different villain arcs, right? Again, living in the spoiler section, you have St. Vincent who captures Lillian. Yes. In my opinion, the way that they describe this capturing and the way that St. Vincent looks at her, the way he treats her on the way was very icky to me. Yeah. I really struggled with that because, again, I read that after. I had fallen in love with St. Vincent and read the book, so I read it, vice versa, which I think also kind of hurt his score, in my opinion, in a way that Leo's didn't, right? Because I read those out of order, and I thought it would do the same thing. But St. Vincent just did. I think anytime a book deals with anything that borders on something that I think we as women consistently worry about, I think it's something that we're taught from a very young age to be fearful of.
Absolutely.
I mean, I think about it with my daughter, and she's 2, right? Yeah. I think, I need to make sure, my eyes are always on you when we're out in public. You never let go of my hand. You never, my cart's always in front of me. Things like that, right? You think about it from day one. Yeah. So when you read about things that play into that, it feels so much darker and scarier to me. Mm-hmm. And with him being in that situation, he got knocked down so far to me versus Leo, who in my opinion had I wouldn't even call it a villain arc.
I wouldn't either. Yeah.
He was bad to his family for sure. I think he got so in the depths of grieving that he made a lot of poor choices, but his redemption arc was then so much sweeter. The way he showed up was so much sweeter. So for me, Leo was so forgivable and likable in a way that I don't think I ever forgave St. Vincent.
Interesting. Okay, I have so much to say here. Okay. It's
Okay.
not that I disagree with you. I don't even know that this is an argument because we agree on so many points. I also read St. Vincent's book first, and then I
Okay.
read Marcus and Lillian later, and I was like, ew, icky, gross. Why did
Right.
he do that? He has a true villain arc, absolutely. Leo doesn't necessarily have a villain arc. When I look at the books of and I will say Leo, not a true villain arc, a much more likable character. I am obsessed with how he shows up for Kev. I am obsessed with how he shows up for his sisters. He is a great character and a great guy. I love him as a character. As a romantic lead that I want to read in romance, where he really, I don't see him as high of a lead as you do, is I struggle, I can't get past if they were in love with someone else in the past. Like, I need no competition. And a big part of Leo's trajectory is he is suffering so much from grief of losing someone he loved. I almost don't, and this is not healthy, this isn't right, but I don't believe personally while reading his love for his new love interest as much, because I'm obsessed with like those pining heroes, right? Like, it's only ever been you. And St. Vincent, it does not pine necessarily, but he is a reformed rake. So being a reformed Drake, he is only ever in love with Evie. Evie is the only woman he commits to and says he loves, and like gets over his to say that he loves her or whatever. So from reading them as a romantic book standpoint, St. Vincent and Evie's story is much more romantic than Leo's. Honestly, I saw Leo like as a fun uncle. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, everyone loves him. He's super fun. He's witty. He's smart. He's charismatic. He's there for his family.
Okay. So I wholeheartedly disagree with that. And the main reason is, so I get your point about the only in love with her. I think they're, and I did love that for St. Vincent's story, right? I think if you isolate what he did and take him out of a villain, yes. What they did a good job of was showing that he grows as a character, if that makes sense. Like, he makes a point to tell her, who I was then is so different from who I am now. I have experienced so much more. I have changed so much more. So the love that I had was very different than the love that I have for you, right? And I think you could compare that to your high school love versus your husband, right? Those are two very different loves. It's not to say that you did not believe that you loved this person and had something that tragic happen to your high school boyfriend when you thought you were deeply in love with them. Of course it would give you a different trajectory, right? So I really accepted his growth path. And number two is that he consistently chases her.
He does.
He's like, you know what? I think I'm into this chick. I don't think I'm going to let it go. And he shows up. He buys her the glasses. He proposes to her like 6 times. Okay.
Yes.
How you can think he's not swoon worthy is crazy to me, because he was after her.
He was just put in a different category for me. Like, I don't know how to explain it. Like, it just a great character, so fun, wonderful. But I also read book 3 first. And then I started over. So I read book 3, then I book 1, 2, and then I got to Leo's book. So
he's 4. Okay. I was like, hang on.
You're like, what? So after reading him down, like really struggling in book 1, I was like, oh, this family needs to come together to help him like get through this, to heal. But like reading that, I was like, again, he just went into a different category for me. That's all. Like, he's not a bad character. I love him. And I actually think like his relationship with Marks is very sweet and cute. And she deserves someone as great as Leo because she's been through it as well. Her story is also quite dark. So she definitely goes through it. God. So she really deserves Leo. Like a great guy like Leo. He went into a different category to me and I could not emotionally connect. That's all. But he is a great guy. And again, I started Wallflowers with spring. And then I went to winter after that. So then but then I did read all the villain arc of St. Vincent, and he is a true villain arc. And they do address it in book 3, so you kind of know, because Evie asks him, would you have liked
you don't realize how, and then he gives her an ambiguous answer. You have to remember that. He gives her an ambiguous answer, and then she decides later on, oh, he wouldn't have had the gall to do it.
Right.
That's awful presumptuous, my friend, because I was there. I was in the carriage, and he felt interested. Like, he was, like, leering at her.
Yeah, it was very creepy. Very creepy, very creepy. But if you don't read book 1, You just read book 3, Devil in Winter. You just read their book. Very romantic.
Yes, I totally agree with that. If I did not read the finer details of him, because I even thought when they say, "Oh, you think, oh, he took her and he was going to marry her." If he had not done some of the actions that occurred,
really gross stuff, yeah,
it was that stuff that I was like, "Ooh, I did not get the feeling that she was getting out of that scot-free."
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. He is a true villain arc. He does, and a very, like you said, specifically bad towards women. True villain arc, which is interesting that if they went through rewriting some of the things to make them, if they took out the fact that she was drunk the first time they had time, why didn't they make, like, if they wanted to do more justice to St. Vincent's character, I would think they would take more of that out in book 1.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But maybe, and I'm wondering if like in some of the rewrites it would have been different, but I don't know, because it's like you need the way she writes these cliffhangers, or these not cliffhangers, these third act stressors, let's call them, is I think you need something effective, right? You need to feel for them. True. So I think if she changed that, she would change the story.
Yeah, that's true. And then change their, also, I know, because we had texted about this, it is awesome of Marcus to forgive St. Vincent and be there for him in his book, like after he abducted his love interest. Yeah. Like, never. Again,
knowing the details of it. Again, had it just been thieving her to marry her, right, I would have been like, it is what it is, you know? A little villain arc, no big deal. But the fact, again, they're just some of the finer details I could not move past.
Yes, I could see that.
But from a stressful book standpoint, for me, the most stressful book was Leo's. I was stressed.
Oh, yeah.
Like 80% of the book. I'm pretty sure I have gray hairs from reading Leo's book.
Catherine's story is just back-to-back stress. Like, she's just going through it. And, like, her backstory, tragic. Childhood, tragic. And then what happens to her, like, she's also basically, and, like, they're trying to sell her until she's rescued by Harry and Leo. So it's like, oh, you know, like, that is dark. Yeah. That's terrible.
Constant
stress.
Last thing I want to talk to you about, which is in these series, I found that, let's call it 8 out of 10 books. I'd say 8 out of 10. No, there's only 9 books. What is that? 7 out of 9. Yeah. 7 out of 9 books. The women get ruined before marriage.
Yes, they do.
And there are only 2 male leads who account for that and do the old right? It's Cam and who's the second one? Oh, this is gonna bother me.
Is it
Leo?
Okay, yes, there was someone else there too, though.
Harry waits until marriage.
Yeah, but anyways, yes, Cam and Leo, you're right. I can specifically think of, yes,
they're the only ones who take precautions against pregnancy. St. Vincent even says he doesn't want children and he's going to take precautions and does not.
And then he doesn't at the end. That also bothered me too, I'm not going to lie, because he's like, I know how to prevent this. And then he's blown away in the moment. He doesn't, you know, like he's like,
and then he continues to. They continue to, prior to agreeing to have children. Leo actually makes a comment that he says that he wants her to have a choice in the matter. Oh, and again, a swoon-worthy moment for me, right? Choice. Not even Cam technically presented the choice. Yeah. He just did it because he knew it was the right thing to do. And I just struggled with, especially in Daisy's book, you're putting a lot of confidence in pre-marriage. You're not going to get
pregnant. And then he's on trial. Again, spoiler time. He's going to go to trial. Months later, they get married. And they're still banging.
And he waits. He's like, I don't want to marry you when I'm still a criminal. What would happen to her if she had a child?
She would be ruined and her life would be very difficult. And their historical
even if she didn't get pregnant? Even if she didn't get pregnant, she's still ruined.
She can't get married. Again, we're talking about spring spoilers. If he had, she would be in a really bad spot. Like, because she had been ruined at that point.
I struggled with those so much when they waited for the wedding and didn't like immediately go and get married and stuff. I was just like, what are we doing here? How can you sit there and present such a huge problem for the female lead and not put into place some sort of like bumper carts here.
Hunt.
That's the biggest thing that I think I struggled with in these batches of historicals. Again, did not demerit the score for me.
Yeah.
Still love them, but it's just something that I was surprised to see them bring up and then flounder on and then wait on, and it's like I would not be taking those risks.
No, especially because like that's the whole crux of a lot of their plots is like, I can't do this. I'm going to be ruined in society.
Yeah.
This is really bad. And then they're just like, oh, this is fine. Like, okay.
Clothes come right off.
Whatever. Yeah. And then
there's a lot of layers. I'm sorry, by layer 6, I'd have come to my sentences.
Exactly. The heat of the moment may have passed. But yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I forgot. I need to reread Leo's book because I reread Cam's book for this discussion. But
reread Leo because I feel like you're going to love him. I feel like your mind will change.
Yes, because now I didn't go right off book 1. Now there's been time where I'm like, okay, you know what I mean? Like,
I think he is swoon worthy in my opinion. Like,
I'll reread it.
My heart. Okay. I'm telling you.
Okay, because Cam went up for me too, like a lot. So I feel like I'll reread it.
I'm excited for your reread. I need you to. I'm honestly missing it so much that I might reread them already, and it's been like days. I don't know where I'm going to start, but maybe Harry's book again. I don't know. Yeah, but I was like, oh my God, I loved him. Again, if you're going to be a morally gray male lead, that's the morally gray male lead I want.
Absolutely.
He was like, I shouldn't have her. I'm a bad guy, but guess what? I don't give a fuck.
And he treats her
take her.
Well, like he's like, I'm a bad guy, all these things, but then he's like, do you need this? Do you need that? Like he's like, and then what I loved about their book that we didn't discuss earlier is she does run away from him, kind of like Leo is so cute in that moment when Leo's like, I'll take you, like I don't care, like I'm your brother, like he can try, you know, I'm gonna take you. And then love that, but then she's anxious about it, so she asks Leo, you do think he'll follow me, right? Because she wants him to follow. And then he's like, oh, absolutely. And immediately Harry comes home to find her gone. Within seconds he's like, okay, we're gonna go get her. Like we're out of here. Yes You know who would be a cool book to read would be like Valentine's book if he got a book. Oh my God, I know. Lisa Kleypas, if you listen to this, give us a Valentine book. Yes. That would be really cool. I would love that.
What was I going to say? Oh, okay. Another thing that you just jogged my memory on is the matriarch and the patriarch of the Hathaways. One of the things that stood out to me in Beatrix's book, so we get to the end, right? Christopher shows up to potentially propose to her. His is kind of funny. It's like you would be offended if you didn't realize what he was getting at, I think.
Yeah.
Because they're like, are you showing up to propose? And he was like, I don't know yet. He's like, I don't know. But I like how he there's a moment where he looks between Cam and Leo and he goes, who do I talk to? And they both point at each other.
That was cute. That was so cute.
Like their whole like I love the way they stack the family, but I would say the true matriarch patriarch is Cam and it's Amelia, right?
Yes. 100%. I agree with you. Yeah, it's Cam and Amelia. I think that, again, Leo is, he's a patriarch adjacent, but they even make a point, like, in Cam's book that he's stepping in to help in a way that is needed. And I think that the family does feel like Cam is the patriarch, as he should be. Yeah. He takes care of a lot. And Leo does, too. When he goes through his journey, he's absolutely there for his sisters. But, yes, it's definitely Cam. I agree.
And one of my favorite lines that Leo has too in that scene is he says something like they're sitting down with Christopher and he goes, don't you have some saying to throw in here? Like, don't you have one of your words of wisdom to throw out?
Oh, yes. I love all of them so much. Like, the series is just like, yeah.
I need to re-experience it. I've convinced myself I'm going to reread it.
You know what I kind of want to do? I want to start at 3. And then I want to go do, because that is my favorite entry point, and I feel like it's the best entry point. And then I want to do 1 through, I want to reread them all in order. I don't need to reread 2 because I read that all the time, like I said. But I could read 1, 4. Well, I just read 1, so I'm going to do 4. Because I read it all the time.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Too, yeah. So so that one I don't need to reread.
Because he's 5.
Because you hated him so much. I get it. Yes. And you've made some valid points. Like, I'm going to give you this one. I didn't, like I said, I don't love when he doesn't stand up for her. But I just, anyways.
The ruin scene, I just could not forgive. I would have made it past a lot of things. And that was like, I was like, no.
Not today, sir.
No.
No, not today. Well, I just read one, so I'm gonna read 4. I'm gonna read Leo. Do 3 and then
Yes,
4.
please do.
Yes.
I really can't wait to hear what you say because
I will.
my heart was moved.
Oh, okay. I will.
Moved.
I will read it. I'm excited. Like I said, I love him as a character. So yeah, I'm excited.
Oh, yeah. But you heard it here first through the grapevine. If you like what you heard, you can find us on TikTok and Instagram at Sippin on Spice.
Yes, and you can also check us out over on YouTube, on our YouTube channel. We have previous book review episodes, but we also just have like a lot of great bookish content. So check us out on YouTube also.
Awesome. And we hope to see you next week. Cheers.
Cheers.